Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy Schumacher. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am the Jer in Wellness with Jer. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. Today, I'm doing a user comment recommended band, a song that I was thinking about reviewing anyway because it is currently my 7-year-old's favorite song, and we listen to it once a day on the way to school for sure. It's in a regular rotation. Um, And it's a decade old. Nothing makes you feel older than, like, going to find a song that in your head came out a few years ago and is suddenly 10 years old. But we are going back with 21 Pilots to talk about Stressed Out, which came out a decade ago. Um, I'm here for it. I'm leaning into the mortality. I can't wait to be 45 years old and have gray hair. When I grow my beard out, it will look fantastic to be super wizard-like. But yes, tiny plug for the channel here of if people leave comments and want me to do stuff, for the most part, I do. I have a few that I'm like still sitting on. Somebody recently recommended an entire album review. Like, I do 30-minute reviews for a 3-minute song. I think that would take too long. Although that's also why I've not done any Pink Floyd songs yet, even though they're my favorite band, because I would talk for too long about it. But without any further ado, let's go back in time. 10 years ago, we're going to do 21 Pilots. Let's get that out. We're doing it.
I wish I found some better sounds no one's ever heard. I wish I had a better voice that sang some better words. I wish I found some chords in an order that is new. I wish I didn't have to rhyme every time I sang. I was told when I get older all my fears would shrink, but now I'm insecure and I care what people think. My name's Blurry Face and I care what you think. My name's Blurry Face and I care what you think. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out.
All right, let's chat for a minute here. This, for those of us who are old enough to remember, was their big breakout song. This whole album's still surprisingly good. I don't know that surprising is the right word. This album holds up really well. I've been listening to it a lot lately, and it's still a good album. I would say, 5 of the songs I could put on any playlist and be happy that they came on. Although they released Fairly Local first, which is not one of the 5 that I would put on any playlist and be happy with. Not that it's a bad song. I don't know. Tear in My Heart is from this album. Heavy Dirty Soul, which I personally really like a lot. I don't know that it's their most popular song, but I like that song a lot. Ride is a fantastic song, and this song are all on that album. I had to do a tiny bit of research for this video because I'm not like up on the band, and I just sort of assumed they were always brothers because of this song. But they're not. This song is written from, I think, the whole album. 21 Pilots fans jumped out in the comments and correct me vociferously. Is written from the perspective of Blurry Face, which is an alter ego, is a persona that sort of encapsulates all the insecurities that they feel as an artist, but that people in general could also feel. The lore I'm not super up on here. I remember when like 21 Pilots was peak popularity here and like did their shows and the masks and everything. It was like, oh, that's cool. And also, I wasn't cool enough to go see them in person or anything. But yeah, it was a whole vibe for a minute, and it was very popular, very trendy. I think this was the song that really like blew up for them and put them on the map. And yeah, ever since it came out a decade ago, I just assumed it was brothers in the band. It's not. Blurry Face is talking here. Um, but yeah, like there's a certain level of nostalgia here. This is the band's, I want to say, third album. So like they've been around for a while. And Vessels, the album before Blurry Face came out, was well received, if not necessarily like mainstream or commercially like smash hit. So they were like coming up, and I think there's this idea of the difference between performing at your local venue or at a small show and like people who really dig you coming out, but like the impersonality, that's not a word. The level of like disconnection that happens then as you get bigger and bigger and doing big shows, and the pressure that comes with that. I wish I didn't have to rhyme every time I sang. um, I was told when I got old all my fears would shrink, and so it's somebody who's not only dealing with becoming more popular, but I think with aging. And the song, I think, does a really good job of like sort of the pros of nostalgia. We know nostalgia as sort of like this pleasant recollection of times gone by. Um, and I think we all experience it to some degree. Obviously, young folks don't really have much of it. We don't have much formative memory before age 5. Although raising children, like, I say that as a data point all the time. I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and their memories are fantastic. I am aware that that will shift and they will forget a lot of the stuff, which is like kind of sad. But they will not recall everything from this time frame. Whereas like right now, my 7-year-old will still like give me the directions to the school he went to when he was 3. So to say something like we don't have formative memory before age 5, like we just don't store. Our brain isn't capable of storing much at this age. At that age, between 0 and 5, and then we just don't have as much storage as we would like. And so our brain sort of fills in some gaps of like remembering some of the good stuff, putting some polish on old things that maybe weren't as great as we remember them. Uh, and so the song in the second verse is going to talk about like how our brain plays with that, which is fun. But yeah, it's a good song. I mentioned Pink Floyd's my favorite band, and they have an entire album about like sucks getting popular. That's a gross oversimplification of a concept album that's really good. But like bands do this, right? That we have fans now and they have expectations of us, and the record label is hemming us in, and that sucks. And like, what if we just could like the music again? Wouldn't that be fun? So this is not, I think, a unique trope. Billy Joel's The Entertainer. Lots and lots and lots and lots of bands, probably most bands, go through this if they hit mainstream success, right? So I think what's more interesting than like, oh, capitalism drains all the joy from it is, although I think that's true, is more so this nostalgia of, I wish I could go back, or like I was told it would be better. And as the song came out a decade ago, I think millennials can probably relate that like we were promised a future that never materialized. Um, there's a word too. It's not nostalgia. It's like synestalgia. Um, it's a word that is not in our common parlance. It's something I've only read academically, but this idea of like not just nostalgia is looking back, but like this idea of things that can never be again. And people experience that. We talk about it. The reason I'm aware of that word is because of doing work around climate change and the mental health impact of like the ice caps are melting, animals are going extinct at a shocking rate, like the rate of mass extinction that happens because of humans and pollution, and is the same as the pollution caused by comets hitting the earth and volcanoes blowing up, like so I think people aren't always aware of that, and then there are people who are super deeply aware of that and just sort of have this dread, and so like we needed a name for that. So I don't remember how I got here. Classic ADHD one take therapy review. Let's go to verse 2 because that talks a little bit more about some of the nostalgia stuff. I don't want that. I've lost my screen share. Nope. Yep.
Was stressed out. Sometimes a certain smell will take me back to when I was young. How come I'm never able to identify where it's coming from? I'd make a candle out of it if I ever found it. Try to sell it, never sell out of it. I'd probably only sell one. Maybe to my brother, cause we have the same nose, same clothes, homegrown, a stone's throw from a creek we used to roam. But it would remind us of when nothing really mattered. Out of student loans and treehouse homes, we all would take the ladder. My name's Blurry Face and I care what you think. My name's Blurry Face and I care what you think. Wish we...
Let's pause before the bridge here. Man, out of treehouse homes and student loans, we all would pick the ladder. That's brutal. That's brutal as somebody who grew up with a generation that took out loans and did not get a return of investment on it. Thanks, boomers, you wankers. The idea that certain smells can take us back to a time and a place is very accurate. It's something that we're well aware of and something that hits with nostalgia. It's really interesting. We know so much more about psychology than we used to. Even in the last, I've been in the fields. I've been professionally in the field for 16 years. 6 years older than this album came out. And what we know now about trauma, what we've learned about ADHD and ASD, these things that I specialize in, is come a long way. And there's still all these huge gaps that we have because it's really hard to study a working brain. Obviously, we can do fMRIs and we can do different things where we're studying and mapping the brain, but like we can't cut into a brain that's active. And I know, like, you're like, Aaron, hey, Jared, my uncle had brain surgery and he was solving a Rubik's Cube while they did brain surgery. Like, to a degree, we certainly can cut into the brain for medical reasons. We're not doing ice pick lobotomies anymore, right? Like, this is, again, what science has come along with, not only what we understand about the brain, but the medical side of it. And what we're able to do is really quite incredible. And the brain is still far and away the most advanced supercomputer that exists, even with the amount of like energy output that AI takes is like insane for something that we like could eat a Dorito and our brain could accomplish for the same task. And the energy output is much more efficient for the human brain than anything technology has been able to even come close with. And there's and it's not even wires that get crossed. I think this is an intentional thing in sort of how we've developed and evolved over time, but that certain sounds, certain smells, certain sights, there's sensory input that triggers a memory response. And certain memories get coded and stored in our long-term memory in our brain with that sensory input attached to it. And so sometimes people will describe like something smelling like home. And that's a very specific thing to them. My brother, who's an Army veteran, will talk about like things that smell like Iraq, like being in the desert, and like something that's sandy or dry will elicit and sort of take that back. We know this can happen with trauma responses, certainly, but good responses as well. These are things that we can get triggered, and I put that in quotes just because I dislike how pop culture has taken that word over. But our brain can trigger on certain sights, smells, sounds, even tactile things, and so those sensory inputs that the brain uses are really interesting. And again, I have younger kids, and there are things that like smell like childhood, right? Like Play-Doh smells the way now it does as it did back then. I have ADHD and I'm on the spectrum, and so sensory input is really paradoxical for me. Like, there are things that like really gross me out and overwhelm my sensory input, and there are things like an old book or a new book. I love books. Can really take you back or like create a sense or a feeling. I talk about using music very intentionally in my practice. One, I have ADHD, so I have a record player in my office. Music is always on in my office. Music is pretty much always on in my life in general. but that we can use music intentionally as a coping mechanism to validate or normalize the feeling we're having. If we're going through a breakup, listening to breakup songs could be soothing, could also make us really sad and like not what we want. And so we're going to listen to happy music, or, we're not feeling particularly motivated. So we've got that like pump up playlist that we put on when we want to go work out, even if we don't feel like working out. So music can validate or normalize the experience we're having, the mood that we're feeling, or it can help shift from one mood to another and try and get us into another space with that sensory input with the music. And like listening to the song, I'm just reminded that like 21 Pilots, again, listening to this whole album, like this like sort of hip hop, but not, they have some alternative rock sounds. They're just blending a bunch of genres of music. Like, it's really popular for a time and a place, and still is very popular. Like, they have a new album coming out. They released a song like 4 days ago. It has millions of views already. So like, I'm not disparaging and saying like, ooh, they peaked. They're still quite popular, right? But it's yeah. And the music video, and people might be familiar with music video or might not, but like they're riding like big wheel trikes and stuff. Like there's so much nostalgia, and they really captured sort of that essence, I think, with this song. And then it's ironic to be listening to this song like a decade later and be like, oh yeah, they're right. And also I'm experiencing what they're talking about while listening to this song, because time works that way. The other thing that's really interesting, and we're about to have, sorry to be a downer, we're just about to have a mental health crisis. We're in one, whatever. Every pretty much every demographic is in one as I'm recording this right now. But we're about to have a crisis for caring for that elder generation. And what we're learning about memory is really interesting, but also like not a cure for Alzheimer's, not a cure for dementia. I'm 36 years old. My brain is deteriorating as we speak. It's just very slow. And as we age, that increases, and the accumulated deterioration in our brain means we lose stuff. And typically what happens first is we're losing that short-term memory, and that long-term memory sticks around. And things like listening to music can really help stimulate some of that memory and get our brain sort of keeping some of those neural networks open. So I think it's really interesting, and I think I'm concerned, to put it lightly, about the aging community we're going to have if there are cuts to the social safety net. In America, we just don't do anything with elderly folks, and then we're going to try and cut Medicaid and Medicare so that rich people have to pay less taxes. It's very not great, and we're going to have a bunch of people who have dementia who can't afford their care, can't afford their medicine. Like, this is hopefully not what the country decides to do, and our elected officials do not pass the bill that's trying to get run through things here. So cutting social benefits for the rich has never, ever worked well for any country. I hate to be political, but like, it's just gotta, I don't hate to be political. I hate that we have to talk about something going very poorly in everything that I'm doing. The song is about nostalgia and joy, but like, again, wouldn't it be nice to have like your retirement home looking back, instead of like living homeless on the street and having sort of a depersonalized trauma response where your brain is trying to recall something from the past. Also, like, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. Let's go to the bridge and finish our song.
We could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out. Used to play pretend, give each other different names. We would build a rocket ship and then we'd fly it far away. Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face, saying, wake up, you need to make money. Yeah. We used to play pretend, give each other different names. We would build a rocket ship and then we'd fly it far away. Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face, saying, wake up, you need to make money. Yeah. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days When the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days. When the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out.
Used to play pretend, bunny. We used to play pretend, wake up, you need the money. Used to play pretend, bunny. We used to play pretend, wake up, you need the money. Used to play pretend, give each other different names. We would build a rocket ship and then we fly far away. Used to dream of outer space, but now they're laughing at the face, saying, wake up, you need to make money.
Yo. My 7-year-old hates when I sing along to things, and he really dislikes when I do the yeah at the end of that song. But I like to. Oh, it's such a depressing song. Also, just reflecting on my career, being like, man, yeah, I related to this. Life used to be easy, and now I feel like I have to do everything to make money. Like a decade later, still doing that. Capitalism, it sucks. It's a policy choice. We don't have to do things this way. Again, I reflect on some of this as a parent as opposed to like reflecting on it for my own life. But like, yeah, I was a happy little kid until like about 10. And that's when my ADHD really hit and I got zero support for it. And I was raised pretty much in a cult. So like, that wasn't good. But 10 was when I was like, I don't want to go to heaven because all you do is sing and that sounds terrible. And I don't like singing. And also I don't want to go to school anymore. And my very religious family was like, okay, Jeremy. But yeah, like watching little kids play, we pumped up a pool, just one of those little backyard pools you fill up and it's ice cold water because it's straight from the hose. And my boys had a blast playing in it. And just the ability to be imaginative and play. And I like that little turn of phrase at the end of the song here where they're like, we used to play pretend, we'd build the rocket ship. But then they keep repeating the lyrics and they sort of get jumbled. We used to play pretend money. And like, yeah, right. Like when you're a little kid, you're not stressed out because you're not worried about shit like money and you're not worried about clocking in and that stuff. And we're raising people to be stressed out, which is why we have mental health crises everywhere with college prep courses and getting 3-year-olds starting to read and filling out worksheets and like kindergartners having homework, like all that shit is bad for their nervous system. It's bad for them. It's not developmentally appropriate. And it's not helping our country, United States of America, catch up on anything like reading scores or whatever. Like we're just the whole educational model is dysregulating. It's just prepping people to work in an office for the rest of their life and be miserable with it, as opposed to like being about learning, which we have pretty good research on like generally starting school later. First of all, stop making 14-year-olds wake up at 6 a.m. It's not good for their brain development. They need more rest. But also, like some of that stuff doesn't need to start that early. Waiting for a kid's brain to be ready for some of this stuff is great. And there's no time frame on that. There is no, if they don't do it now by kindergarten, they will flunk out of college. Like that's false. There's no research supporting that. There's a ton of research that says you can harm children and delay their learning and make them hate learning by doing it that way. So, but yeah, and kids just like, want to go play in the woods and grab sticks and hit them against trees. And they're very imaginative. They're very creative because they're not like worried about stuff like that. They do have all their physical needs met, but again, like pretend money, the whole idea of capitalism, like the stock market, what's the amount on your credit card? Like this is all just made up bullshit. It's just made up, right? The stock market gets turned on and turned off every day, but it also is the cause of like financial collapse and economic disasters. And like it's a made up thing that we turn on and turn off. I don't know. I'm ADHD and have never understood money. I'm not really motivated by it. I do like having food. So what if, we just, because there's enough food production in the world for 10 billion people and there's only 9 billion people on the planet, what if we just let everybody eat and then they could pursue what they want? Then songs like this wouldn't hit so hard because we wouldn't all be like, yeah, we grew up and growing up kind of sucks because making money is stupid. Making money to pay for the things that we would like to do if we could just not have to make money to do them. Yeah. This is silly. Hey, fellow millennials, I see you out there. Young people, you know, let's kickstart the revolution. I don't know. I don't want to be doom and gloom, but like, I don't think growing up has to suck. I have children and I enjoy having children, and there's lots of things that I enjoy as a 36-year-old that, you know, 22-year-old Jeremy wouldn't have enjoyed. So, yeah, I don't think it's doom and gloom. I just think like living in a constant state of stress because of money, because of capitalism, because the policy choices that we as a society have made are very bad for our mental health. We could do that differently. Um, I was told myself I wasn't going to complain about what the band chose to do creatively. Again, I don't know anything about music. Like, I'm a mental health professional. But I will just chime in and say, like, what happened with 21 Pilots, and I was a fan, and I'm reminded of like, yeah, like this band was awesome when I listened to this album. And then Heathens came out, which was like to the soundtrack of the first Suicide Squad, which wasn't very good. Um, but it's this weird thing that happens when some alternative rock bands, and I know 21 Pilots is probably not alternative rock, but like there's this thing that happens where they'll do like a slow song, and I don't know if it's easier to perform or it's easier to remember or they're very proud of their vocals or whatever. Like Cage the Elephant comes to mind with this too. Like, go listen to Cage the Elephant's first album, and they're like, in one ear is the song. I just saw them live with the Black Keys and Florence and the Machine. Just like such a good concert. Like it goes hard. And then they did like that song about like growing old and smoking cigarettes or whatever. And then everything they do is slow now. And like I feel like kind of that's what happened with 21 Pilots. Like they did Heathens. It also was very popular. It did very well. And then they started doing like this slow introspective stuff. And I was like, no, like this is a fast-paced song. There's a lot of different musical elements about it. My 7-year-old assuredly has ADHD. That's part of the reason he likes this song so much, because there's so much going on. The message is good. It's good vocally. Like it sounds great, but there's a lot going on. And then they did Heathens, and it's like, man, there's not a song. That's not true. That's hyperbole. I was gonna say there's not a song that I'd like to skip more, but like I had no interest in listening to that song. It's slow. It's boring. It might be like good for a soundtrack or cut to a movie, but like, ugh, ugh. I did just listen to the new 21 Pilots song. I thought of doing a reaction video, but I really detest the online culture around reaction videos because people are just lying to you. But it is somewhere in between. It's not as fast paced as this, but it's not like slow and drudging either. So, you know, maybe I need to go back and listen to more of their catalog, because Heathens really just turned me off to them as a band for a long time. So if you're a 21 Pilots fan and you've watched this whole video and now you're deeply offended with all the things I've said, I put good songs down there. Don't recommend Heathens. It's not a good song. But now Blurryface, 10 years old. It's a good album. There's, again, 5 really good songs on it. Like really good, you know, like put them on any of your playlists and enjoy. So 21 Pilots, new album is coming out, which I will give a listen to. You know, I'm coming back around, and what I've heard, the one song I heard so far is like, yeah, it's worth it. Been listening to a lot of Blurryface with my 7-year-old, so that's fun. Good song, like really on point for how nostalgia works and why growing up sucks. It's because we need to make money to meet our basic needs, and that's stressful. It's bad for our brains. Our nervous system doesn't like that. So yeah, like, subscribe, drop down in the comments. Like I said, this is a idea I got. Somebody said, hey, can you do 21 Pilots song? Absolutely. So we got some other stuff coming up. I have a podcast where we talk about mental health. If you're interested, you can check that out. It's called Your Therapist Needs Therapy. I post episodes here on YouTube, or it's wherever you get your podcasts. But yeah, liking and subscribing helps people find me and the weird world that we live in that is driven by algorithms. So that's cool. And then if they want to do therapy with me, they can reach out, which is also cool. All right, y'all. Thanks for stopping by the channel. I appreciate all of you. Take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. Peace.